Ghost of Tsushima, which finally dropped, at least in the reviews. I don't know if it's like officially out yet or not, I can't remember, but the early reviews are out. It's the, the 3-4 days before the game release type reviews start popping up. And as expected, a shitload of comparisons are happening in these reviews to the game being a lot like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Which is exactly what happened with Horizon Zero Dawn when it happened. It's like reviewers have it in their mind that Breath of the Wild is like the one action-adventure game that exists, and that everything should be compared to Breath of the Wild.
No. The answer is no.
It's fucking weird, man.
It's just this big fandom. That's what it is, dude.
And they use it to actually like mark down the game. Like the 2 points of content or contest for this. First of all, forgive me today. I haven't slept in about 4 days, so my English is gonna be fucking stroke-tastic today. Just fair warning. But the 2 complaints were that there's a lot of like it boils down to it's like Breath of the Wild, but it's not Breath of the Wild, and you're like, what the fuck does that even mean? I don't know. And the second one is that apparently it has like a cinematic mode or something that defaults the track to Japanese, but the main game itself is dubbed. The characters' voice, like mouths, are dubbed for the English that the game defaults to. Because obviously the team that made this game knew that the majority of playing this thing were going to be a bunch of English speakers. And so they played to the market that was going to play it, and that's what they did. And so it's a bunch of classic Western weeb motherfuckers bitching about why isn't this Japanese game done in Japanese by standard? Oh my God, how offended must the Japanese people be? And just like every other time, what do we find out? The Japanese reviewers, the Japanese public, they all think the game is fine. Nobody's complaining about fucking the game was dubbed in or anything. Nobody's bitching and complaining. You only see that shit in the West. A bunch of white people that can't keep their fucking mouth shut on social media, and I promise you, it's mostly fucking white people doing it. That are the rooms are full of every fucking manga known to man. They've read One Piece 3 times over and they can't wait for the next one to come out. They have a fine collection of katanas of various lengths, and they might own a Tribly or 5. That's the people that complain about this shit. And then the same thing, I actually made 2 tweets about this before we went live. I don't even know if you saw them, probably not because you weren't on Twitter. The follow-up was a response to all of that, the fact that the Japanese didn't give a fuck about this, I don't know if you remember this, but remember when Sony did I think it was last year's E3, and they had, it might have been for Ghost of Tsushima's, announcement, in fact, if I might have even forgotten that much, but it was a white dude who was playing that Japanese traditional, big-ass flute instrument or whatever. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah. And do you remember how everyone, I mean, a bunch of white people got really upset with the fact, why isn't this guy Japanese playing this fucking instrument for this game? Why is he going to be white?
I don't remember that, but I can.
It was a thing.
I can see that being a thing.
Social media, articles were written. It went the full fucking 9 yards. And then, as it turns out, every one of them had to shut the fuck up because that man he's a master of that instrument that learned and trained in Japan and is revered by the Japanese people for his ability to play this instrument.
Lol,
and so it's the same thing every time. It's a bunch of fucking idiot white people virtue signaling for another race or culture that they have no fucking idea what they're...
They don't even understand.
They
just want to shout.
They just want to get fucking mad about it. They're like, whitewashing! And so that's what you're seeing in some reviews are people complaining about stuff like that. Say, look, I said it last week, man, I'm getting brighter and brighter in this room. I love it. This is going to be amazing. People on YouTube are going to be like, oh my God, it's so bright on the webcam. I said this last week about Horizon Zero Dawn and making comparisons to Breath of the Wild. and I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that it's probably not too far-flung when it comes to Ghost of Tsushima. Breath of the Wild is one of the most overrated games of our time. Full stop. I played it, I beat it, I did a lot of the bonus content. My ex-girlfriend literally lived and breathed that fucking game for months. I know that game fucking inside and out. It's an overrated fucking game. At best, it was a 7 out of 10 on a good day. The reason it got higher and got praise is, like I said last week, it's what? The fucking Legend of Zelda. That's it. That's all it is. That's all it got is it's the Legend of fucking Zelda. It's a nostalgia trip. And it wasn't even a good Zelda game. It was just a good action adventure game parading as a Zelda game. The dungeon designs were terrible. It wasn't that good at all. And then you play Horizon Zero Dawn and probably Ghost of Tsushima, and it's going to, as an action adventure game open world, make Breath of the Wild look like a snooze fest, boring pile of shit. But yet somehow, people are still comparing these games to Breath of the Wild instead of Breath of the Wild being compared to these obviously superior games.
Well, I think the reason why they're doing that is, number one is people
Clicks.
are obviously biased, and it's clicks. That's honestly what it is, right? What are they going to do? Are they going to compare it to, like, some sort of great unknown game that the vast majority of people
How about don't make comparisons when they don't need to be made? It's an M-rated samurai open world action adventure in like a filmatic experience versus Breath of the Wild.
Using Breath of the Wild is like using buzzwords. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It gets the attentions of the casuals.
It's the cloud, Jeff.
That's what it is, man.
Machine learning.
That's what it is. That's why they do it. So anyway, it doesn't surprise me. We'll see.
It's the blockchain.
Yeah, this doesn't surprise me, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't plan to play it myself, at least not right now. But I would be shocked if in the majority that game wasn't a much more competent game than Breath of the Wild as a whole package. Because Breath of the Wild came down to like quantity over quality. They literally at one point in the game, in Breath of the Wild, they have you collect like 900 plus pieces of fucking, of like Korok seeds or some shit, and you get gifted a golden piece of shit. Literally. And that was their idea of a video game as an extra. And I was just, what are we fucking doing? So anyway, that's, I just mentioned it because I personally find it weird to be comparing games that are, like, they're technically the same genre, but they're so fucking far-flung from Breath of the Wild that comparing it is silly. And then I have a personal vendetta against the fact that game just critically did so fucking well because it's such a mediocre game. It's just painful.